They discovered a deceased female on the floor in an advanced stage of decomposition. One's dead body to be in an apartment for a very lengthy period of time and not contact authorities, that raises a lot of concerns for us.
What shocked investigators even more was the autopsy. The woman had been 8 months pregnant. But who was she? Why hadn't anyone reported her missing? And who could do something so brutal? Hey there, and welcome back. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss an update. Today, we're digging into a heartbreaking case, one that took the lives of not just one, but 3 innocent souls. Let's get into it. It was a cold December afternoon in 2022 when tragedy struck at the Dash and Go convenience store, a Shell gas station on New Hampshire Avenue in Silver Spring, Maryland. Behind the counter was 61-year-old Ayalew Wondimu, a devoted husband and hard-working man. Born on November 6, 1961 in Ethiopia, Wondimu and his wife came to the US in 2002, chasing the American dream. Even thousands of miles from home, Wondimu stayed true to his roots and his faith. He was a respected figure in Maryland's Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church community. For years, he quietly worked at the same gas station, serving customers with a warm heart. But now, he was ready to retire and finally spend more time with family. December 8, 2022. That was supposed to be his last day on the job. Just before 3 p.m., a man walked into the store. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He picked up a bottle of iced tea and approached the counter like any regular customer. But this wasn't a routine stop. He got into a heated argument with Wondimu over the drink. What started as a petty disagreement quickly turned into something much darker. The man began hurling items at Wondimu. In fear for his safety, Wondimu grabbed a metal pole from behind the counter and swung, just trying to protect himself. That's when the customer stepped back, pulled out a silver handgun and, without hesitation, fired point blank. But he didn't stop there. Consumed by rage, the gunman jumped onto the counter and fired multiple rounds, making sure Wondimu wouldn't survive. Then, as if nothing had happened, he grabbed his bottle of iced tea, calmly walked out, and vanished into the streets. At 3:03 p.m., police received a call that would launch a manhunt and leave a community shattered.
On December 8th, which was yesterday, at 3:03 p.m., the Montgomery County Police Emergency Communications Center received a call for a shooting.
When officers arrived at the scene, they were met with a grim sight. Ayalew Wondimu lay collapsed behind the counter, his chest riddled with bullet wounds. The store was eerily quiet, the chaos frozen in time.
Ayalew Wondimu, an employee behind the cash register counter, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the chest. Wondimu was pronounced deceased on scene by Montgomery County Fire Rescue personnel.
Paramedics did everything they could to save him, but it was too late. Ayalew Wondimu had already succumbed to his wounds. What was supposed to be the start of a peaceful retirement became the scene of a senseless tragedy. As detectives launched their investigation, they turned to the store's surveillance cameras. Frame by frame, they reviewed the footage and gathered witness accounts. It didn't take long to identify the suspect, 31-year-old Torrey Damien Moore.
Leaving the store and headed in the direction of the Enclave Apartments, which is across the street. Detectives from Major Crimes applied for and obtained an arrest warrant charging Torrey Moore, 31 years old, with first-degree murder and use of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime.
On December 9, 2022, authorities officially charged Torrey Damien Moore with first-degree murder and use of a firearm in the commission of a violent crime. Surveillance footage played a critical role. It not only captured the brutal shooting, but also showed Moore fleeing the scene. As detectives followed his trail, they made a chilling discovery. Moore lived just steps away at the Enclave Apartments, directly across the street from the gas station. Because of how violent the crime had been, police weren't taking any chances. A SWAT team was called in to serve a no-knock warrant, a high-risk tactic that allows officers to enter without knocking or announcing themselves. The goal: get in fast, take control, and minimize the chance of anyone getting hurt.
His front door was completely smashed in. SWAT had served a no-knock warrant.
Police arrested Torrey Moore at his apartment without incident. During the search, officers recovered a Jimenez-armed semi-automatic handgun, the very weapon believed to have been used in the deadly shooting.
Moore was taken into custody without incident. Items of evidence, to include a 9mm handgun, were located and seized by detectives.
But what they found next was beyond anyone's darkest expectations. Lying on the floor, concealed in the shadows, was the decomposing body of a woman. The corpse, nearly mummified, had deteriorated so bad that identification was impossible. It was transferred to the Montgomery County office of the chief medical examiner for an autopsy.
When SWAT made entry, and after arresting Moore, they discovered a deceased female, believed to be an adult, on the floor in the apartment in an advanced stage of decomposition.
When police questioned Moore, he spoke with a disturbing calmness as he confessed to the unspeakable. The victim was his girlfriend, Denise Middleton. He claimed he had killed her during a heated argument. But the horror didn't end there. The real shocker came next. Middleton had been 8 months pregnant at the time of her death.
What appears to be a 26-year-old female who was 8 months.
Despite the fact that Middleton had suffered 7 gunshot wounds, no one reported hearing anything unusual on the day she was killed. For weeks, Moore lived right next to her decomposing body without raising any alarms. Even more bizarre, Middleton's family never filed a missing person report. There were no formal complaints about any strange smells coming from Moore's apartment. One neighbor, Tony Pineda, recalled noticing an overpowering stench when he stepped out of the elevator near Moore's apartment, but he simply assumed it was just rotten garbage. Another neighbor, Leah Kemp, mentioned that she had reported the foul smell in the hall, but only received a single letter in response from the Enclave Apartments manager. We will be launching a new property management software system and a new resident portal. The resident portal will no longer be available.
I think that is crazy because our portal to make requests has been down for 2 months. So even if there were requests, they could have just gone unnoticed or have not been documented. But I did give a call on Monday just to ask if they were going to put out a statement or anything. They told me to contact the local police department and they weren't going to put anything out.
For weeks, the neighbors endured a disturbing smell in the building, unaware that just down the hall lay the decomposing body of a young mother. The young mother tragedy. Denise Jenna Middleton was born on March 14, 1996. In 2022, while pursuing her career as a professional hairdresser in Silver Spring, she met Torrey Moore, and together they built a life at the Enclave Apartments. Her future seemed bright, especially when she found out she was expecting a baby boy. She chose the name Ezekiel for her unborn son, inspired by the archangel, symbolizing protection and faith. Her dreams of becoming a mother were filled with joy and hope. Sadly, those dreams were shattered when Middleton's life was taken by her partner, Torrey Moore. The autopsy report revealed the horrific truth. Middleton had been shot 7 times with the same weapon that would later be used to kill Ayalew Wondimu. According to doctors, her death occurred around October 2022, over a month before her body was discovered.
Wounds. A forensic pathologist examined the child at the time of the autopsy and determined that the 8-month-old child was in fact viable at the time of his mother's death.
The tragic timing of her death only made the loss more heartbreaking. If only Middleton had survived a few more days, she would have given birth to her baby boy. To make the family's grief even harder to bear, the dignified farewell she deserved was cruelly taken away. Because of the condition her body was in, her remains had to be cremated.
When we heard how badly decomposed her body was, it was just unbelievable to believe that we had been living our lives for that long and not knowing that she was dead.
Moore's criminal record was extensive and filled with red flags. Over the years, he had been charged with various offences, including armed robbery, first and second-degree assault, armed robbery with a deadly weapon, kidnapping, narcotics possession with intent to distribute, and unlawful possession of a loaded handgun. These charges, some dated back years, showed a dark and violent side that few in his life had fully comprehended. One notable incident was a charge for aggravated assault filed by none other than Denise Middleton herself. In June 2022, Middleton reported an assault to police in Norfolk, Virginia, accusing Moore of violent behavior. Her cousin told the police that in their final conversation, Middleton had fled to New York, trying to escape the cycle of abuse. Despite the attempts to distance herself, Moore's control over her seemed unrelenting. Friends and family recall how, in the months leading up to her death, Denise had become more withdrawn, less open about her relationship, and more isolated from her loved ones. As detectives delved into Moore's past, another unsettling detail came to light. Moore was legally prohibited from possessing a firearm due to his prior convictions. So, how did he acquire the murder weapon in the first place, and what other potential dangers he might have posed to the community? Additionally, court records indicated that Moore had been facing active charges for assault and that multiple complaints had been filed against him over the years for erratic and violent behavior. Despite these reports, Moore was able to avoid severe repercussions for his actions, a fact that left Denise's family and the community questioning how such a person could have been allowed to roam free. With Moore's violent history out in the open, detectives grew more committed to seeking justice for both Denise and Ayalew. Authorities acted quickly to move the legal process forward, and Torrey Moore was scheduled to stand trial on Monday, December 12, 2022. Initially charged with the murder of Ayalew Wondimu, Moore now faced additional charges for the deaths of Denise Middleton and her unborn child. Given the severity of the case, prosecutors added a charge of violence against a pregnant person to the list of offences. After his arrest, Moore was taken to the Montgomery County Police Headquarters, where he was informed of his Miranda rights and interviewed. During questioning, Moore admitted to visiting the convenience store, arguing with the clerk, and ultimately shooting him. However, when asked about the death of Middleton, Moore denied involvement. While he had confessed to killing her earlier, his initial statement was ruled inadmissible in court because it was made before he was advised of his rights. Moore now claimed he had traveled to New York City to bring Middleton back to Maryland. When asked to provide a timeline, he referenced a vandalism incident involving his apartment door, stating that he had left for New York right after reporting the incident to Montgomery County Police. Records confirmed Moore filed the vandalism report on May 12, 2022. After returning to Silver Spring from New York, Moore and Middleton went out for food. On the day of the murder, though Moore couldn't specify exactly when, he said an argument broke out as they were returning to their apartment. This argument eventually led to her death. Moore stated that during the argument, he pushed Middleton down in front of the apartment, claiming she acted as if he were trying to kill her. He told her to get up and stop acting. According to Moore, Middleton was still upset as they entered the apartment. He admitted, "I probably slapped her, and I probably choked her a little bit." After that, they went to the bedroom, where Moore tried to calm Middleton down before he left to buy marijuana. About an hour later, he came back to find Middleton unresponsive. When investigators questioned Moore about any gunshot wounds or visible injuries on Middleton's body, he claimed he wasn't sure. He repeated that Middleton was pregnant and told him the baby was his, a boy due in October. In the end, Moore continued to deny involvement in Middleton's death. He claimed that a few days after discovering her body, he went to California, where he stayed for over a month before returning to Maryland. Despite Moore's denials, the evidence against him, including witness testimony and physical evidence, strongly suggested he was involved in both murders. Law enforcement and prosecutors had gathered substantial evidence, which made it highly unlikely that Moore would escape the charges. Moore's first court appearance was on December 12, 2022, at the District Court in Rockville, Montgomery County, where the public eagerly awaited the swift and decisive justice. However, Moore's defense team requested a mental health evaluation. After reviewing the report from the Office of Court-Ordered Evaluations and Placements within the Department of Health, Justice Amy Bills ruled that Moore was not competent to stand trial.
Not competent to stand trial, and was also a danger to himself or to others. After a court-ordered
The request for a mental health evaluation caused a temporary pause in the legal proceedings, leaving the victims' families frustrated and desperate for closure. Torrey Moore returned to court for additional hearings on December 15th and December 19th, 2022, with each session focusing on his mental competence. In each hearing, Moore was determined to be unfit to stand trial. State's Attorney John McCarthy expressed grave concerns, stressing that Moore could pose a danger to both himself and others if released into the community. As a result, Moore was held in police custody without the possibility of bond.
It's important to note that he is not free in the community. He is being held without bond because of the dangerousness, even though it's still pending as an evaluation for competency.
Moore's request to be released under pretrial supervision was also denied. In an emotional interview, Middleton's cousin expressed her frustration, saying, "I believe that when he got to a point where it was just too much to bear, he came over here to get caught. You think this was just his way of going out with a bang, and he didn't know what to do with her body. I hope that judgment is passed down swiftly on Torrey Moore. He's not incompetent at all. I do not believe he is incompetent to stand trial because he was able to tell the cops what he did to her and why." As news of Moore's alleged incompetency spread, people took to social media and local news outlets, voicing their anger and disbelief. Many questioned how someone with Moore's history and the evidence against him could be deemed unfit, fearing that he might escape accountability. The court acknowledged these concerns, yet under Maryland law, competency to stand trial must be fairly evaluated. Competency assessments consider whether a defendant understands the nature of the proceedings and can actively participate in their defense. Though the delays frustrated many, the court had a legal obligation to ensure Moore's rights were protected, regardless of the severity of his alleged crimes. After the court's ruling, Moore was placed in a mental health facility for treatment. In 2023, he was finally deemed fit to stand trial. The next year, on May 16, 2024, 33-year-old Torrey Damien Moore, guilty of first-degree murder, use of a gun while committing a violent crime, and illegal possession of a gun in the death of Ayalew Wondimu. Moore faces life in prison in connection to the shooting. He is expected to be sentenced on December 12, 2024. Meanwhile, Middleton's murder trial is scheduled on November 18, 2024. As the community awaited the next steps in Moore's case, Middleton's family held on to hope that justice would ultimately prevail. They knew the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but they were determined to honor Middleton's memory and protect the future of their community. What do you think? Could Moore's mental state allow him to evade justice? Will he be responsible for the death of Middleton and their unborn child? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to share in the comments. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, let us know. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.